Hi all, Bob Linde from the School of Herbal Studies. Boy, and this is one of the better known plants that grows in the tropics. We find this all over the Caribbean. Every tradition, every culture uses either the food or the medicine. Let's find a good shot of a leaf. We use this for medicine, for food. It's got so many names: balsam apple, it's called Cerrasee, you name it. And well, I'll tell you, any kid growing up in the islands, their mama used herbs. At some point, they used this little beauty for, punishment, medicine, you name it. So this wonderful plant, bitter melon is how I always like to refer to it. That's how I learned it. And I still remember down in Abaco when I learned this plant as something that would cool the blood. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but the idea of cooling the blood, it clears heat out of the body. And this is this idea of an energetic system. I'm going to find a flower here to talk about. And there's a nice little flower. So pretty little yellow flower. Looks like any of our other melons that we might find, as the leaf is similar in shape. And this is a vigorous growing vine. We'll find this growing all over the place. And in the islands, I learned that, start with 3 leaves a day. That first 3 leaves a day, chewed up fresh. Oh, this guy's almost perfect. I might have to pick him. And so those 3 leaves, well, they can help with blood sugar, high blood pressure, any kind of hot, wet condition, any kind of phlegminess, cholesterol. It is a cholagogue. It helps to stimulate the bile secretions. It can help with candidiasis and external wash. I've used this for a variety of intestinal cancers when people can't afford their regular medicine. Teach them to go out and use this. It's anti-parasitic, but there's some dangers with this little booger that we have to be careful. Not that it's going to kill you, that it's toxic, but it can cause some problems because it really does lower the blood sugar. And by lowering the blood sugar, it's important to remember that low blood sugar is just as dangerous as high blood sugar. So if we're going to use those leaves for medicine, then we got to make sure that we're monitoring our blood sugar, adjusting appropriately so that we don't drop it too low. And it's interesting because kugua is bitter melon that you might find in an Asian market. And the Chinese primarily use the fruit. And so it'll be a little bit longer and a little bit smoother than this. And they tend to, let's see if I can find a nice green one. They tend to use them when they're green because once they start to turn this yellow or orange color, then all of a sudden it's got some alkaloids in there that are a little intense for the digestion. And so it can cause some explosive diarrhea if you're not careful. And so a lot of crampiness, a lot of discomfort once it starts to get this yellow color in there. So that's funny. It is a little late in the season here. The new growth is just starting, but I thought I might find a nice green one in here somewhere. Usually you can feel a little bit of heavier weight on the vine as you're playing around. I think there's somebody down here. There's one. Oh, no. That's an odd color, but if I was starving, I might eat that, but he's probably a little past what I would consider good. I really want that dark green color on there. So, starting with the leaves, but it's aptly named. It is very bitter. And a lot of people, they don't even notice this growing on their fences or on their hedges. Find it everywhere, but the first thing that they notice is the orange color or these little red seeds. And boy, make sure you got the right one, because these red seeds will kill you. And they both grow on vines, and I think they look very different, but a lot of people can't tell the difference. So if we're eating those 3 leaves and we're tasting them up in all their glory, well, I'll tell you what, they are correctly named. They're bitter. Now, this one isn't quite perfect, but as we open it up, this one's probably about 2 weeks beforehand. There's a little bit of red pulp that's really high in lycopene. Lycopene is one of those things that we get out of red vegetables like tomatoes. I guess that's technically a fruit, and particularly good for the prostate. So it's nice anti-inflammatory, but seems to have an affinity for the benign prostate hyperplasia. But the interesting thing about this little red pulp that's on here is it's super sweet. And if you suck the seed off, and notice that little bitty seed underneath there, if you chew up the seed, back to the cramping explosive diarrhea. So you want to suck the red pulp off of there and spit out the seed. And I know here in Florida, I've talked to so many good old boys, and they're like, no, I remember eating this as a kid, and I ate the whole thing. Chances are they didn't chew up those seeds. So the seeds are great for constipation and considered for intestinal parasites, that it's anti-parasitic if you chew those up. Problem is, it doesn't do it in a very nice way. So I think you can find a kinder, gentler way to get rid of any parasites, or just cook your food and you're less likely to deal with any parasites. So bitter melon, Cerrasee, you can cook it up stronger if you need to. It's everything that's hot and damp and wet. It is antimicrobial, used for, boy, you name it, it's used for any kind of acute syndrome, from malaria to cancer to parasites to blood sugar. Well, I guess that one's a chronic one. So go out, get to know your plants in your neighborhood. And this is Bob Linde from the School of Herbal Studies. Hope you can join me on an herb walk soon.